Hey, are you hungry?
What?
Are you hungry?
For what?
I don't know. Do you want like a Pez?
I will take a Pez.
Sweet. Okay, because that's all I have on this. That's all I have on this moon or this foreign alien planet that I landed on. Unfortunately, all I have is Pez. Okay, this was stupid. I thought I had an intro. Welcome, you people of the universe. This is episode 0 of TERA CON PRIME TIME, and I'm your host, Jeremy, and this is my other host.
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm the other host.
Wonderful. And Josh, what are we talking about on this?
Well, Jeremy, today we're going to be talking about the pilot that became the show, Final Space.
Oh, is that what this podcast is about?
Yes.
Is this a Final Space podcast?
This is a Final Space podcast.
Oh my gosh. Here we are. We're doing it. We're doing a Final Space podcast. So I want you to say Final Space one more time.
Final Space.
Okay, you didn't have to get weird with it. Okay. You didn't watch the episode again. You didn't watch the pilot of the pilot.
What's the pilot of the pilot, Jeremy?
Okay, well, the pilot of the pilot is called Gary Space. And Gary Space is created by this gentleman on the internet called Olan Rogers.
Might have heard of him.
And you might have heard of him. He is a YouTube creator. He's been around for almost a decade, if not longer, under various capacities. Whether a part of his trio balloon shop with his friends Joshua Persley and Thomas Gore, or as a solo act, Olan Rogers. He honestly, what doesn't this man do at this point? He does sketch comedy. He has a TV show. He owns a business. You know, what can't this man do?
Take a break.
Well, we'll get into that later.
He's a very hardworking guy.
He's a very hardworking man, isn't he?
Yes.
Not that I don't have the video up right now, but let's just say if I did.
So what is Gary Space?
Gary Space. Episode 1 of 1. There's never another Gary Space, unfortunately.
Man, it's a shame we'll never see the adventures of Gary after that. They'll never be shown.
Yeah, no. Never, ever, ever, ever. Published May 4th, 2010. First cartoon he ever made. Give it a chance. It's just like with every cartoon, they get better with time. This is purely for fun and nothing more. This is episode 1 and a 10-part cartoon I'm making for fun. I always wanted to make a cartoon since I was a kid. Well, Olan, if only you knew. If only you knew how well Gary Space would do.
9 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. This thing is almost a decade old. And it's so nostalgic for me because I remember watching this. I remember, like, just because I'm so used to Olan from his, sketch comedy and, like, being an on-screen personality, that to have it be that, one of his earliest videos ever, he released 5 YouTube videos before he released Gary Space. That's such a deep cut for him. I mean, almost a decade ago. Like, this is the deepest of deep cuts at this point. For a first animation, compared to, like, what I made in college, this is arguably a lot better. There's heart to it. You could see that there's some passion in it. But it's almost like South Park in the sense that it's just kind of just like a static image sort of hopping around on screen.
Yeah, I could see that. It's very definitely like handmade. You can see him drawing all of that out.
Oh, for sure.
In Copic markers and everything.
Dan Brown or Olan, whoever drew this, I believe it was Dan, can definitely draw better than me. So I'll give it props. But now that I've rewatched it again and I have it up for reference, I honestly forgot just like his first like impersonation as Gary Space. Like this machismo, like, come in, Star Command, come in. You know, I've seen some weird things on this alien planet. Oh man, what is this thing? I'm gonna offer it a Pez. I'm so glad he steered clear of that, but it's got its charm to it. Come in, Space Commander. I'm just exploring. You know, it's funny. I will give it that. It's funny. Like, it makes me chuckle every time because it's just imagining some dude in outer space just being like, "Hey, come in, Star Command. Yeah, I need backup, Star Command." Nobody is going to be talking like this. I'm so glad he discovered, like, hey, you know what? I can just use my regular voice as the character.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You know, I'm just trying to give some very thoughtful, very focused critiques. Let's discuss some other things about this. Gary's design. I mean, clearly he's improved a lot because this is red and blue.
You could see the beginnings of it.
You can see the beginnings of it. It's very, very basic. And, like, even looking at it now, like, the first frame of this animation, like, I can see on the rocket ship the very, like, first prototype Infinity Guard logo. Like, just the planet with the 2 rings. And, like, I hadn't really thought about that until exactly now. So now I'm like, oh, well, here we go. This is the origin of the origin story.
It might be a little bit of a stretch, but the craft looks like a really basic version of the Hawks.
Oh, for
the
sure.
Little Hawks that you see in the Galaxy 1.
And even Mooncake, like just this round lump of gelatinous, you know, space matter.
Green dreadlocks.
Yeah, green dreadlocks, you know. And now that I'm thinking about it.
Is it hair?
I'm going to assume that it's some sort of fleshy thing.
Fleshy jiggly bits.
Yeah, or it's just... No, he definitely has eyebrows. Maybe it's just, you know, a very... It's a comb-over. It's the alien version of a comb-over.
There we go.
And that's what I love about Olan is that, like backstory, I guess, you know, like, refreshing my mind about, like, what I loved about Olan. I watched his Last Scene, New Prime, and Pop Rocket series today, and those are so packed of, like, self-referential, like, they're a contained story. They all, like, while they might not necessarily, you know, have exact starts and endpoints, they use the same characters, they're referential to each other, like, and that's what I love, is that, like, even in this, like, you know, since it is the pilot, I guess, before the pilot, it's the pre-pilot. There's got to be a more glamorous way of saying that.
You could call it the proto-pilot.
The proto-pilot. Yes, the proto-pilot. Yeah. No, I now that I'm watching it again, I'm definitely, like, I can remember seeing this the first time, and I was just like, what is this? Like, I remember thinking, like, this is so strange. Why is Olan doing this? Like, it seemed so foreign. I'm just like, I came here for, like, the sketch comedy. I came here for the storytelling, and this is something else. What are you doing here, Olan? And, like, to have, you know, so many years later, the pilot, and be like, oh, this is what he was going for. Oh, I can get behind this. I like this. But this deep cut of Gary Space, you know, it definitely threw me for a loop. I just, I don't know. I just didn't catch on at first. I'm like, this is weird. I don't get it.
Just watching him slowly go up to eat the Pez. Just sliding over to the right.
Yeah, and like, that's what I'm saying. It's just like very I don't want to say, like child's first animation, but because there's still love in it. Like the fact that he was even able to put, like a smoke trail for his, craft in the background, like that shows like an attention to detail, which is great. But also the fact that, and I'm hearing it right now, that his his early sense of humor was very just repetition, it seemed like. So like, I'm going to give it a verbal command. Cheese. Yeah, like and just repeating cheese over and over again. Like, and that's what I was saying, like rewatching Pop Rocket and the last scene, like a lot of the humor was just, I'm going to say this over and over again until it's funny. And at some point, I would argue that it didn't really become funny. It was more so like you say the same word over and over, and it just sort of loses its value almost. Like this word doesn't mean what I think it means anymore. It's just sort of a sound that you're saying, and it's lost all intention. But him just going, chase, and there's no response. I don't know. I definitely could not have made anything like this. I don't have a shred of creativity like this in my body. So the fact that he was able to do this, and it almost has 200,000 views for a deep cut, which is cool. It's at like 170,000 views right now, which means people have come back to watch this.
Some people, well, I didn't know anything about this until after having watched the series. So to go back and to see kind of where this all originated from, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's the interesting part. Is you were a fan of just the show at first, right?
Right, because you've been a fan of Olan for years, and then you've seen it all sort of evolve into Final Space as it is today. But I started from the show.
Oh yeah.
And then went back to watching some of the earlier stuff.
Oh man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like I'm so used to, and I'll get into this later, but like I was so used to just like the sketch comedy that to see this journey from like very humble YouTube creator to having a show on television was just so cool to see, and the evolution of that, to go from the Tennessee Wonder Child into the Hollywood Wonder Child.
No, but he's still very much in Tennessee.
Yep. And that's the thing, is that like having rewatched this again, I don't really think there's much like reference to like other source material of his. I think it's just more so like this was the original concept, like the OG concept. And then from there, like once he's built up like his humor over the years, like that's when we finally get into some of the self-referential and like the deep cuts that we all know and love now. But like I said, you can't, like for me, hearing a lot of the show's humor, I'm like, oh, I recognize that. I know exactly what video that is from. Versus you would probably just like, that was funny. What's that from?
Yeah.
Is that from something?
Is that a reference to something? Has he said it before?
Oh yeah.
Like I didn't realize where the phrase "sweet Grandor's glove" came from. And now I do.
Yep. So, listeners of TERA CON Prime Time, make sure to go to the Final Space Discord page and come hang out with us.
Check the link in the description below to join the Final Space Discord server.
There we go. Josh did it for me instead. Cool.
Sorry.
Thanks for taking my job.
Jeez.
On to the next subject. Final Space, bracketed, cartoon pilot, published by Olan Rogers on April 5th, 2016. Description: thanks all for the support. TBS, pick this up. The TV show of Final Space comes out in early 2018.
I can't wait for 2018.
We're in the past, my friend. We're looking at something in the past. We've entered the temporal worm.
Now this is where everything starts to like get into shape.
Oh, for sure. And that's the great part about this is, like I was saying, is I'm very much a YouTube person. Like, I grew up on YouTube, and so I know a lot of the people already in this video. The only person I did not know in this video was actually, well, I guess I already knew Cody. I already knew Cody from Pop Rocket, but I didn't make the connection that he was Avocado before, like, reading, the title card at the end. Anyways, so this had pretty much all of my favorites. It had Olan, it had Mitchell Davis, it had Jake Sigbell, and then a new favorite would be Cody Galloway. But that's what I'm saying, is like, having watched a lot of Olin's stuff, I had known for like the longest time that, he had done these, rolling with Olin's with Jake. I knew that he did Pop Rocket with Jake and Thomas and Mitchell and Cody. I knew that he went on the Eat a Slice tour. Like, I knew all of these sort of like background, like source material.
Mm-hmm.
And to have it culminate into this, a cartoon pilot that eventually got picked up by TBS, I was like, at least for me, I can remember thinking like, oh man, I hope like everyone comes along for the ride. And currently the only person that didn't get in was Mitchell, unfortunately. And I was a big fan of Mitchell too. Mitchell Davis from the YouTube channel Live Lava Live. But just seeing this pilot was so cool. Like even in its infancy, it was well animated for the time. It was well voiced, and I really liked the concept. I was just like, you know what? I could live in this world. I could see myself watching a TV show about this. And so that was the interesting thing, is that like, just knowing that it was a pilot, I was like, oh, that kind of means that he's probably going to be like shopping it around, like
Pitching it to different
like
studios.
Yeah, exactly. And then like a year later, it happened, which is crazy. Well, at least, let's see. So that was what, April 5th? And the next video where he finally updates us about it was a lovely, if my internet would load, December 2nd. Okay, so only 8 months later.
Wow.
To go, yeah.
That is super quick.
To go from a pilot to being picked up by TBS in 8 months is crazy. I can't even imagine what Olan was feeling. Like, that's... And, like, I can remember, like, just being, like, so proud at the time. Because, like I said, I've watched a lot of YouTube. And so, like, to see... At least for me, like, there was like Grace Helbig and Mamrie Hart and Mitchell Davis of Live Lava Live, like all these other channels, and especially when YouTube definitely got sort of big back in the day, like I don't know if YouTube Red was out yet, but I do remember, there was this sort of, people were starting to transition into sort of more like long form, like series,
binge-worthy content.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the behemoth that was YouTube was really taking form back then. And I'm not like any sort of historian or anything, but I sort of remember this happening. And so like I could just remember like Olan had yet to reach like 1 million subscribers. I think like back then in 2016 he was maybe at, I don't know, maybe like 500,000, maybe 700,000. Like it could have been any, like I feel like I can kind of remember when his channel was at like 100,000 followers to, gradually picking up more and more. And like I had seen, like Mamrie and Grace already like hit 1 million subscribers, I can remember thinking like, I want Olan to be there someday. Like I want him to find his own success, but like not like YouTube. Like I want him to reach 1 million followers, but like I want him to stay the same, because there is a certain level of like, oh, depending on who the creator is, some people still stay, humble. Some people let their, inflated ego get to their heads. Some people, change, now that they have sponsors and advertisers and things like that, book deals and stuff like that. And what attracted me to Olan so much was that like he really just did his own thing. Like he made the soda parlor and like went through like 2 different stores, if I remember correctly. Like the first venue got like too small for its britches and they had to move like shop. And like he had an apparel company that he ran and still runs.
Yep.
Yeah, still runs. And so like the fact that he was sort of like doing his own thing, I was just like, this is so cool. And then he pitches a cartoon pilot and like, oh, that's what I really remember. Yeah, okay. That's what I remember, is that like the fact that he was able to pitch this to a national channel, TBS, and other channels, and get picked up by TBS, whereas like, Miranda Sings went to like Netflix, like to me that just sort of seemed like, oh, well, it's Netflix. They're kind of, they're trying to do their own thing. So, and YouTube Red, I think, was just like starting up. I'm like, I'm not going to pay for YouTube Red. I'm not going to watch this thing on, like Netflix. But for whatever reason, and, maybe it was like bias, but I was just like, Olan got a TV show on national television, and I'm going to make sure that I watch this thing, because that is the most, because like being like an avid watcher of YouTuber and kind of wanting to get into YouTube, but also like, just not really wanting to tread those waters, like wanting to get into the film and entertainment industry, to see arguably, one of my favorite YouTube creators kind of break out of that and get into national television. I'm like, holy cow, he did it. Like this dude like sort of left, the internet and got onto TV. Like, that's cool. I want to support that. And so, like, we haven't even talked about the pilot yet.
Oh, yeah, there's a pilot.
Yeah, there's a pilot. Yeah, excuse my little Olan Rogers, tangent. So, the reason why I really like this so much is because, 1, it was Olan Rogers. 2, I knew about Newform from a lot of other YouTube creators, too. And so to see sort of, him get funding from that and have Mitchell Davis in it, and just knowing that, this sort of had like a broader scope, this is going to be like a little bit more professional, in a sense that like now Olan had, I'm assuming, and I don't know if I have, credible claim for this, but I would assume that he got, some sort of funding from Newform to actually sort of make this. And that's why they were attached to it. And that's why I believe they're still attached to it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Final Space.
So what they did with the pilot is what Olan does best. He draws people in because he makes you want to see more of it.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely by the end of it.
Yeah. So that's what I really loved about him, is that he already had like a very engaging way of telling stories. Some of the classics, like A Ghost in the Stalls or A Bad Apple or anything like that, like he can just tell a story and keep you engaged. Just his mannerisms, his tangents of where he's going with the story, and just the way he says things. Like he's a genuinely funny dude. And then to take that, throw it into a cartoon, and having him build this world of, we lost Earth, I lost many people along the way, and now I'm going to not exactly exact my revenge, but I'm going to make things right, it was really cool.
I'm literally going to defy time.
Yeah.
To go back and fix what I screwed up.
Exactly. And so knowing what we know now, is kind of, I wish I could watch this again with, sort of a fresh pair of eyes and fall in love with it all over again. The Final Space cartoon pilot is obviously a huge improvement from Gary Space. Let's just start off with that.
Yeah, they had an entire studio to work on this thing.
Yeah, exactly. So just from animation to proof of concept to story to sound to everything, much improved.
Mm-hmm.
Much improved.
Everything just feels sleeker and very professional.
Exactly. And even just seeing the pilot characters and the ship designs and things like that, like, it already felt so lived in. And like even what, 30 seconds in, like, seeing a destroyed ship and seeing a hand with a gun cut off, like, we're already seeing, like, this is going to be sort of a violent universe. Versus you didn't really get that from Gary Space because it was just come in Star Command. It was just something silly. But this was real. This was intentional. This was serious.
It's a dual thing because you have the evidence of violence, the debris floating through the air, the corpses, the disembodied hand with a gun, but it's so quiet and it's got this really, really haunting score as you're slowly going through the wreck of the ship. And it just feels so... It's great. It's emotional.
Done by the very lovely, very talented Jake Sidwell, who was also the proto voice of Hugh. It's interesting to, like, hear this first orchestral score and hear Hugh and just how it's sort of this, monotone 2001: A Space Odyssey, Hal, just like, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave. Like, it's cool. I feel like that's going to be most of my critique, is just, it's cool.
It's cool.
It's cool.
My thing
It's
will be,
cool.
oh my god, look at all of these sci-fi references. Gary got a freaking glow up in this pilot. Let me just say that. He's still red and purple like in Gary Space, but
Yeah.
you could already kind of see where the design's going. It's a little more complicated this time.
Again, you see the Infinity Guard logo. Now it's emblazoned on his chest. He already has the robot arm for some explicable reason
Yeah,
that
that
isn't
was
explained in
impressive.
this. Yeah. Isn't explained in this, but he already has the robot arm. He's a little worse for wear.
And he's already got Avocado.
And he's already got Avocado. Avocado's got a different design. Gary's got a different hair design.
He's also dead.
He's to anyone who has not seen the show, spoiler, I guess. But we're just going to assume that you've already seen the show. You're listening to a Final Space podcast.
We assume you've seen at least season 1, if not starting season 2. Or in the middle of season 2.
We're just going to assume that you've already seen Final Space because this is TERA CON Prime Time. Gotta plug the show whenever you can, my friend.
We're a show! But yeah, it's very atmospheric, the whole score, and Gary talking to Hugh while the corpses of his friends lay around him.
Well, I mean, technically, we only see Avocado, which we can assume is a friend, and then we have Kevin, who I would assume is not a friend.
Nope. Kevin is still, in pilot form, a jerk. Nobody liked Kevin.
And then Lord Commander. I remember loving this voice for him. Especially because, just, again, it's his humor. It's Olin's humor. Just sort of...
Who voiced him in the pilot?
Olan.
Oh, Olan did the Lord Commander voice?
Yeah.
He did a lot.
And that's why I love the Lord Commander in this version, is because he was a bit more pathetic. Mm-hmm. Like, he was a bit more, like, he had, dimwit, henchmen.
Release
Release
I
the
can't do
victory
voices.
balloons. Just seemed a little more like helpless almost, which made it more like comical. Like it seemed more serious with Gary, and then you would have just the comedic break was actually going to be the Lord Commander and just his failures along the way.
He looks like a really pale grape.
He is a very pale grape. So at least in this pilot, there's really no, inclination that he has any sort of powers. He doesn't have any sort of powers.
Yeah, I noticed that. He's walking around. He's not strangling people with his telekinesis, and his eyes aren't glowing.
Yeah, exactly. And he still managed to, in this pilot, we see the Lord Commander get a hold of Mooncake, as we now know and love him. But instead of ripping a hole in space-time, the fabric of space-time, he just destroys the Earth, which is a little different.
Which is totally a Death Star move.
Yeah, exactly. You're using a small, innocent alien to blow up the Earth. How dare you?
I wonder why he wanted to destroy the Earth at the beginning.
I know. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, like what is he gaining out of this?
Was Earth in the way of something? Did he want to build a parking lot there? Maybe. But yeah, Lord Commander freaking destroys Earth. Earth is gone.
The Earth is lost.
And Quinn is gone.
Quinn is gone. Quinn hair gone.
Quinn everything gone.
Gary is much different. He's got a more well thought out uniform.
Ladies and gentlemen, he has a face and he's blonde.
He has a face and he is blonde. I find it surprising that he already has the robot arm, because like that sort of already sets up like a okay, he's already been through some traumatic events in his lifetime where he has a robot arm. But how did he lose it?
How did he lose it this time?
Yeah, exactly. How did he lose it this time?
Well, maybe it's one of those constant things where, Gary has a robot arm, Avocado's dead, and everybody died.
So multiple timelines, are you saying?
I'm saying maybe multiple timelines.
Do you think, on the subject of timelines, since at the end of the episode, Gary goes into a temporal worm, do you think that this is technically a canon episode?
I think that it could be. It could be a way to just set up the series when it starts all over again. Siri, what the hell?
I was about to say, I definitely heard that. In this pilot, it says, you'll retain no memories of it, which is interesting because I think that does set it up as it could be canon, but at the same time, it's like because of the redesigns and stuff like that from the pilot to the episode is like, okay, is the time worm just dealing with time, or is it dealing with multiple universes? Like it can connect to a different universe sort of thing. Because I think that opens up a metaphorical can of worms. I think for me, this might just be a separate entity, just because, of sort of the inconsistencies, like the purple boots and stuff like that. But I can see the argument that, it's a multiple universe sort of deal. Like him
Right.
going into the time worm is him quite literally setting reset instead of maybe, like a network decision, like, oh, well, we want a fresh design for him, stuff like that.
But it's definitely different this time around. He's still the blonde protagonist of the show, but he's always set out to be said hero. He's promoted really high in the Infinity Guard. He gets his own ship to carry out like an exploration mission, as opposed to what he is in the show. He's a lowlife who got sent to prison. But we'll cover that later.
Yeah, and now like I'm thinking about that as like, oh, you know what? Like that story beat from the pilot is kind of transposed onto his dad instead.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and now like Gary is, the low life, nothing on the run, meets a beautiful lady, tries to impress her, and pisses off.
Literally everyone in the galaxy.
How do you piss off a whole government? Destroy 97 Imperium cruisers in a small Mexican restaurant? Sorry, Guadalupe. I think that's the line.
Yep, that's the line.
What I really loved about this is just knowing that like he's kind of brought his friends along for the ride, and sort of it's like a whole like uh rising tide will bring all ships sort of deal, whatever that expression is. Because like this had Jake, this had Cody, this had Thomas, it had Mitchell. Unfortunately, Mitchell is not yet in the final series, but Olin, I expect you to pull some strings for that one.
Hey, I mean, he got Cody on, and now he's riding high, doing the whole voice acting thing.
I know. And that's what I'm saying is like Jake did, the music for this pilot. He did the music for season 1. Thomas was part of this, I'm pretty sure.
And he's still a consultant of the show.
Yeah, still a consultant for the show. And I don't know, I just fell in love with this. And that's why we're here, is that we're discussing Final Space on TERA CON Prime.
We'll get better with this, I swear. When we get to like the actual episode story beats.
Don't worry, loyal listeners, we'll get better at this. But for now, you're going to have to endure the awkwardness that is two internet strangers making a podcast.
Woo!
Woo! Ooh, that was almost Kevin-like. Ooh.
You almost got it.
We are so stuck right now.
Oh my god. I can't do voices.
Yes, that's the content you all came for, didn't you? Okay, humor. I definitely just, from Gary Space to this, like actually having what seemed to be like a professional writing team, or at least a more formalized script, much improved. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. I love Olin's delivery with his lines. I still think he does a bit of repetition, especially during when they're all stuck in, the pink gelatinous goo, whatever that is. But I think it works this time around, in the sense that it's not just the same word over and over again. It's the same sort of idea over and over again, with him just sort of yelling, like, "Oh, are we stuck right now? I was curious. I maybe thought we were stuck right now, but, I wasn't for sure, but, oh, okay, we're stuck right now." Like, that's definitely, I find that more funny. It's just like, sort of like beating someone over the head, just like, "Oh, really? You think we're stuck right now?" And to have that transition into like the final show, for the most part, and I think that's definitely like his flavor of humor. Like, that's what really sort of like has stuck with me and influenced my own sense of humor, is that like, yeah, what, if you do sort of put a spin, tweak something a little different every time, you can still find humor in what you're saying. Oh yeah, Mooncake, his design is
No,
official.
the dreadlocks are gone.
I, for one, am happy that the dreadlocks are gone. I find
Nah, he does look a lot more professional.
yeah,
now.
I find the Mooncake in Gary Space to be horrifying, whereas the Moonspace in Gary Cake,
Moon Space and Gary Cake.
the Mooncake in Final Space, a lot more lovable. He's more approachable. You could go up to that alien and say "chuckity pock," and have a decent conversation. Take them out to dinner. A nice steak dinner. What the fuck am I saying?
You're taking Mooncake out on a date, man.
I'm taking Mooncake out on a date.
I think you'd like that. That'd be pretty nice.
Yeah, it's just two species hanging out, getting a steak dinner. Thank you all for listening to episode 0, the pilot of TERA CON Prime Time. My name was Jeremy.
My name's Josh.
And we hope you all will listen into future episodes of TERA CON Prime Time. But for now, you can follow us at our social medias and find us on the Final Space Discord. We're going to be reviewing every episode of Final Space and continue on after that. And we hope you all will join us for the ride. Josh, do you have anything else to contribute?
I'm hungry.
Do you want a Pez?